Hello and welcome to another episode of the Curious Mind podcast. My name is Gabriel Ellis. I'm a psychologist, a contemporary philosopher, and psychotherapist. And today I want to take a deeper look, after the introduction last time, to the topic of loneliness, the new loneliness, as I call it, and isolation. New because, not it's because a new topic, but the extent of perceived and lived loneliness today is much higher and stronger than before. And it is due to the advance of social media and the extent in which people interact with social media. So, in that sense, it's not a new phenomenon, but it has gained a new dynamic. And I want to reflect on that today. So, today I want to speak about the metasocial world that we interact with, for example, in social media, herd mentality, and its connection to loneliness. First of all, and this is kind of a bridge to the previous episode, I want to point out how we generally live in a more stressful, demanding way of life. We have a lifestyle where we have to more or less constantly worry or think about our income situation. Is our job secure? We are expected to engage in lifelong learning. We have to deal with sometimes complex bureaucratic processes. There is a high demand on flexibility on our part, be it in relationships or in work. At the same time, we're supposed to self-develop, to do therapy, to engage in a process of self-realization. We have to know who we are and what we want. And often enough, we have to deal with relationship issues or topic as well on a frequent basis. Now, the amount of these issues would be enough to burden our mind, our mental processing with enough demands. But on top of that, it's not only the problems that we have there, but we are more and more aware of a very large amount of possibilities of how to address these issues. So let's say if I want to understand myself better, of who I am as a person, then of course I will go online. I will check out tools or approaches on the internet, and there I find a whole supermarket. Which one should I choose? I don't know. Let me start with mindfulness. Then I do a first step in mindfulness, and I think, is that the right for me? Maybe I should try something else. And so whenever I choose something, I am quite aware that I have rejected and deprioritized other approaches. And this leaves behind a certain insecurity if I did the right choice. Same with parenting. There's so many approaches to parenting. Same with dealing with communication issues at work or in private life. And basically pick any other complex and principally unsolvable topic that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And there you will find a myriad of possibilities of how to approach them, leaving the individual who has to make those choices in a conundrum, not knowing if what I choose is the right thing, or maybe I'm paralyzed by all those choices and I'm not willing to take the first step to book a weekend retreat or a seminar, or to switch between different, for example, YouTube pundits and commentators who educate me on a certain topic. So it's both the extent and the range of the issues and the challenges that we're facing, and the high awareness of the so many possibilities that can prove my approach wrong. This leaves us behind as basically insecure individuals who are quite stressed with the decisions, the impactful decisions that we have to make in our life. Of course, there are also positive aspects in this. I don't want to deny that. To have a range of possibilities to choose from is, of course, advantageous. But at the same time, I want to focus today on the negative impact that it has, just to make clear how these elements in our modern daily life lead to more isolation and a perceived sense of loneliness. When it comes, for example, to relationships, It's always a question of who am I listening to? Am I still in a place where I'm doing interesting compromises in my relationship that benefits us both? Or maybe I am already exploited. The answer to this depends on the person that I'm talking to. It depends on the voices that I'm listening to, the Instagram followers, the Instagram pundits that I'm listening to. So it is shifting, and the lack of authorities in that sense, the lack of common sense leaves me behind in a destabilized position, who has to make up their mind and to shift their opinions again and again. It's not clear whether I should, when it comes, for example, to work or to relationships, if I should advance a more strategic approach. Should I be more stoic and not worry about the things that I cannot control, focus on myself? Should I be more psychological? Should I trust my intuition? Again, these are all examples for the different approaches that people have good arguments for, but that leave me in a bit of an ambivalent situation where I don't know what is the exactly right thing for me to choose. Good. So this is the general situation as it is. Let me come now to what I call metasocial calculations. With metasocial, I mean that we basically deal with socially relevant topics, even when we don't do it within real person interactions. And I mean with that social media, obviously, YouTubing, TikToking, and so on. It is a well-known fact already that strong interaction with Facebook and Instagram tend to make people more dissatisfied or depressed. Why? Because when we look at the content that fellow people, that other people put in the net, we enter into complex social comparison processes. We compare ourselves with them. We are having in the background questions like, what do I think about it? Do I like that? What would I say in this situation? Do I agree? Is that right? Is that wrong? How would it make me feel? And how would it make me look if in conversations I would to advocate such opinions as the ones that I see online? Do I have to change my opinion now after seeing arguments, after seeing content that is put in social media? Or can I maintain my attitude as it is? But if I can maintain it, then how do I defend myself? How do I defend my opinion, my conviction against those of others? These are calculations, meta-social calculations that are running in the background of my mind, whether I know it or not, and that burden my processor, if you like. It burdens my RAM, my internal RAM, and sometimes leads to an overload. Now, some people would argue that it was basically the same when we, back in the 80s and 90s, were watching TV. But I would say that there's a big difference. When we're watching TV, it's more passive. It's not as democratic as the engagement in social media. When we are watching TV, we perceive the people that appear on TV as very far away. They are the ones on the TV. Of course, this distance is even bigger in movies. But even if there's a documentary, the stylized form, the display, the presentation suggests that I am the one at home. The people on TV are the ones that are exposed and somehow special. Is not as democratic as, for example, it's streaming, game streaming, Twitch, Discord, or if it's in social media posts on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and so on. I feel myself when I'm engaging in those metasocial processes on social media, I feel myself addressed as a direct interaction partner. I could be the one who is either creating this content. Certainly, I'm one who can directly comment. If it's in live streams, I can directly interact with the streamer. So I'm much more addressed in a very democratic sense as someone who can see eye to eye with other participants or the content producers themselves. The consequence of this is that engaging with social media does not relax. Metasocial calculations are a burden from the mind, even if I think that I'm just watching. So I could be on a couch and I'm doing my thumb flipping on YouTube Shorts, on TikTok, and so on. And if my girlfriend asked me what I'm doing, I would say I'm just relaxing. But the mind is not relaxing. Those social comparisons, those processes that I mentioned before, where I relate to the content that I'm watching in a very direct sense, as if it's approaching me, as if it's addressing me, as if I could have done that, as if I should comment on this. These are elaborate processes that are very intense, that are very complex, running in the background, and they effectively prohibit, they avoid me being relaxed. So when I engage with social media, my social battery is depleted. I am pre-tired from social interaction. I'm fatigued without having interacted with real people at all. After such a fatigue, I'm much less inclined to seek in real life, personal social interactions. So after work, let's say I'm relaxing in quotes, which means I'm engaging in social media. Do I want after that to go out and meet people, strangers, acquaintances, friends? I would say my clear tendency is that basically I'm already fatigued. My social battery is empty. I have done my piece. I've done my part. Or in other words, the background processes that have been engaged with social media, they have fatigued my interest to go out to on top of that, real people. So social media is mimicking social interactions. It's fatiguing us in a similar way as social interactions, as real life social interactions do, without giving us the real benefit of social interactions. So that those real life interactions become too stressful and my probability is reduced to engage in real life with people. Another aspect that I want to highlight is that the interaction with social media increases my expectations because it is so democratized, because it's so democratic. I compare myself not only to the attractive parts in social media. If I see, the food videos and pictures, the selfies that people take, the special landscapes where they are, the cities where they are. These are actually nice things to see. And when I compare myself to them, to these nice content, I will get a little bit more dissatisfied and depressed about my life. Why is that so bland? Why are people enjoying themselves in Venice with those great burgers and all of that? And I'm just sitting here on my couch and not having these things. So not only am I engaging with kind of beautiful, interesting content, I'm engaging also with negative, interesting content. When I watch social media posts, I have this kind of media diet, I start to ask myself if I am comparable to the problems that I see there on the screen. Do I also have adult ADHD? Where am I traumatized? Should I take antidepressants? Should I get some Botox, some fillers? Have I been emotionally exploited in a relationship before? Are there red flags in my current relationship or in my dating that I should pay attention to? These are questions that I ask myself more and more. And from my clinical experience, these are questions that people come into therapy now. They have had the social media diet, they have absorbed those perspectives about trauma, about emotional exploitation, about red flags, and so on. And it bothers them. And they don't know quite what to make of it. Or they have made up their mind that they also are like that. They have identified themselves with this content. And it has contributed to a problematic perspective on themselves and on others. And this is what they bring into therapy as well, additionally to the issues that they're struggling with anyway. So social media has practically opened up new criteria that I can perceive as problematic, both about other people, potential contacts, potential friends, partners, dating, and myself. So as a result, our demands and expectations change. The demands and expectations on ourselves, which can make me depressed. I should enjoy more. I should go to places. I should be more fun, and so on. And the expectations of others. I become more picky. I want them to have less red flags. I want them to match me in a certain way. I want them to have attitudes and convictions that match mine. I become more picky with others, more selective. I deem less people as worthy of being my true friends. And there is a direct link to a sense of isolation and to a sense of loneliness. Another point that comes into the picture, and these are all puzzle pieces that we'll put together in the end, is mass psychology. And in particular, the psychology of swarms and herds. In general, knowing where society is headed, where my group, my reference group, my peer group is headed is important for our survival. We don't want to stand out too much. We don't want to be an outsider. Outsiders have traditionally and in the animal realm a smaller chance for survival. They get less support. Maybe they're excluded. And by exclusion, they might be exposed to the difficulties, vagaries, and problems of life that we face when we have no support group, when we cannot count on the services of society, on the protection of people, the protection mechanisms that are in place, either economically or through police and so on. To be excluded is felt like a death sentence psychologically. And in real life, in reality, if I don't have the money to back it up and to buy all this support, it is in fact something that is that can make life really difficult. Now, what is interesting here when we look at the research that has been done on swarms and herds, when the entertainment business picked up the need to simulate, for example, in animations or as in computer graphics, when we have movies and we want, for example, like in Gladiator, we see those swarms of birds flying around Rome, ancient Rome. When we need to make those simulations, the question is, how do we simulate this? We don't want to basically paint each bird again and again on every frame. It's much more elegant to have a formula, an algorithm. And this algorithm needs to predict the movement of the swarm so that it looks natural. At the beginning, what they did was to have an algorithm where each individual bird, so to speak, each individual subject in the simulation had an understanding of the whole swarm, and that when the majority of the swarm moved direction, that the individual would follow. This proved to be very ineffective, and it led to wrong calculations. It did not look natural. What proved much more lean and much more elegant, much more effectful and naturally looking are simulations where the individual, let's say bird, is not looking at the whole group, but when it's looking at its neighbors, the direct neighbors. So when a simulated bird looks at its, let's say, 5, 6 neighbors, and 2 or 3 of them make a certain movement to the left, the individual bird, so to speak, the simulated one, will assume that this is a representation of the whole group, of the whole swarm. And so it will adjust its movement as well, even though it has no idea how the whole big group is moving. It will infer, it will assume that the movement of its immediate neighbors is a correct estimate of how the huge group, the peer group, is moving, and it moves accordingly. Okay, and there you see already a possible connection to humans. As human beings, of course, it's also important for us how society, in quote, thinks. We don't want to stand out. We don't want to be left alone. We don't want society, our relevant group, to think that we are crazy, that we are inappropriate, that we are not worth of love, and so on. We want, in a certain sense, to fit in, regardless of what some people say that they don't care about it. Psychologically, of course, they care. They have no other way of doing it. So mass psychology, social psychology is crucial for us. It's very important for us. And it's equally fundamentally important what kind of calculations we do as part of the herd, as part of the swarm. And I suggest that we take this parallel from the animal realm and what I told you about computer simulations and apply it to ourselves as well. When we look at our immediate neighbors and we see them moving in a certain way, I think that we cannot help to assume that a much bigger group of our relevant neighbors, that the society is moving in a certain direction. And here, the phenomenon of echo chambers becomes very problematic. I think I described it in the last episode. If you're not familiar with the term echo chamber, it means that through the interaction with social media, with YouTube, and so on, that the algorithms that calculate what we should see next base their recommendations on what we have seen before. And so kind of my media diet, becomes more and more uniform. I see more and more of the same that I have digested in the past. And so people become enwrapped in a bubble, in an echo chamber where their thoughts, their interests, their convictions, their hobbies, their inclinations are reflected in the media that is suggested to them by the social media platforms and by their algorithms. This is called an echo chamber. The most divided society in the West that we know is that has been researched is the US. So people there live very much in social media echo chambers, so that people who are liberal, for example, will mostly find attitudes that reflect their own ones. When people are conservative, Trumpists, and so on, they will find social media content that again reflect their own opinion. They will not find content that will make them empathetic to the other side. These are the echo chambers. Now, the echo chambers, when I interact less with real people in the flesh, if they cease to be my immediate neighbors, so to speak, and here think of the swarm and herd psychology, if my immediate neighbors become the ones that I interact with in metasocial processes on social media, on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, then I will get a warped, I will get a biased, a wrong, a misled understanding of where the group is moving, where the group is heading. It will be polarized. It will be falsified. My perception of reality, of what society is, will be wrong because I don't get a realistic depiction of society on social media, but one that is advantageous for the social media platform because they want me to click. They want me to watch the ads, right? And so I will get a completely warped and changed and wrong perspective on what society is if I face it online. I don't exactly in what way it is wrong, but for sure, I will interact much more with people that think like me. I will villainize people, attitudes, convictions that are kind of adequate to the group, the echo chamber that I belong to. And this is in stark difference to what I would see if I were to talk to 100 random people. I would not see this kind of clear division, this clear contrast as I see it on social media. So, putting all these puzzle pieces together, let's start again from a psychological perspective, and then we'll wrap it up. For which aspects do we desire the most recognition? For the ones that we have already? When I have been told that I am smart 100 times, do I look for the next person to tell me that I'm smart? No, basically I'm full of this. It's become part of my identity, part of my conviction of myself that I'm attractive, that I'm smart, I'm beautiful, I'm compassionate, I'm logical, emotional, whatever it is. I have got this recognition already. I'm not looking for the next one. What I'm desiring, which needs I desire recognition for, are the ones that don't have been recognized, that don't have been seen, right? And where am I rejected? Where am I not seen? Typically in aspects that are less compatible with society. Freud, in his 1930 book Civilization and Its Discontents, he basically reduced it to aspects that are connected with aggression. The individual, you see it when you have children, when you see them, young children in everyday life, they have to learn painfully, slowly, that they are not to act out their aggressive impulses. It takes time for them to learn. This is called socialization. So within us, there are aggressive needs, aggressive desires that are controlled by society. Society has no interest in us acting out on our aggression. This would exceed the possibilities of any society. It will lead to chaos, anarchy, and so on. It bursts the limitations, exceeds the limitations of what society can handle. So society, and this is Freud's argument, but for the sake of simplicity, let's go with it. Society is interested in controlling the aggression of individuals. So this is an aspect that individuals are inherently feeling a lack of recognition for. So when I meet in real life with people, they're not very much interested in my suppressed aggressions. They want things to be peaceful, basically, agreeable, compatible. So with those repressed aggressions, I'm entering the social media realm. Yes, it's nice to have the content that is somewhat interesting, documentaries, all that. But what tickles my nerves, what really gets me engaged, what excites me is the dangerous content on the internet, on social media. When people express freely something that corresponds to my suppressed desires and needs for aggression, sexuality, kinks, deviant social attitudes, unacceptable convictions, then I am heard, then I am seen. And compared to the things where I'm recognized already, compared to the aspects that are bland and common sense, art, and so on, this one really excites me. This invites me to identify with those voices, with these contents, because it listens to me, it recognizes me in a way where I have not been recognized before, where I'm missing recognition and strong opinions, controversial opinions. Controversial when I go out in real life, but in my echo chamber, in my social media realm, that's fine. And it invites me in anonymous comments, in content that I provide. It invites me to also express these suppressed emotions, those aggressions, those otherwise unacceptable opinions and convictions. It invites me to do that. Finally, there's a space where I can do that, because on the street, at work, in my relationship, no, people want harmony there, more or less. They don't want to express something that could exceed the limitations of our social contract. We have done this in the past before. Those repressed aggressions, those repressed desires and needs, there was always a space for this. Where was it? It was, well, first of all, in books. And of course, there were also very trustful conversations with a few people, but leaving those aside, it was never in the big society. It was in books, it was in movies. Then came computer games. That became more interesting because in books and watching movies, I'm passive. I'm not so much involved as an individual. I cannot identify so much with it. It doesn't allow me, it doesn't want me to bring it out. I'm supposed to perceive, to read, to watch. In computer games, it becomes interactive. I can kill and slash the monsters, for example. I can do sexual acts in the computer game that otherwise would not be acceptable. Well, and after computer games, we have social media. And as long as I can express those views without facing real life consequences in my life, when I can express aggressive, demeaning, polarizing views on the internet, and I still can go to the supermarket and get my food, I'm still keeping my job, I will do it. And so this is a new dimension of resonating with, picking up, expanding on suppressed emotions, aggressions, ideas, thoughts, convictions that now have a completely new way of manifesting themselves in a in a metasocial realm that comes with the promise of anonymity, of not real consequences. But of course, as we have seen now in the recent years, of course it has consequences. It has consequences for the whole society. So this leads to political trouble, to a polarization, to more aggression in the real social realm, because, and here we start to tie the knots together, to put the puzzle pieces together. I'm going on social media. I understand what is acceptable. I understand for where society is going based on the behavior of my immediate neighbors. Swarm theory, herd theory, mass psychology, group psychology. And if my immediate neighbors are not the real people in real life, they are fake. My real new neighbors, are the ones that I am online with. My warped perception of reality. This is my new reality. These are the people that I agree with. These are the people that resonate with me. They acknowledge, they recognize my needs. We have that in common. This is my group. Okay, what does it have to do with loneliness? When I now go out and I meet people in real life, our interaction is governed by what Freud has described, for example, by the suppression of aggression, by the suppression of risky needs, risky desires. So what I feel, what I perceive when I go outside and meet real people is that it's kind of bland. Maybe it's boring. A lot of chit chat, Small talk. What I know from the interaction with social media is that there is a level of feeling of being recognized in a much more true way. And so when I go out and meet people, I feel bored. I feel disconnected. I feel lonely. I feel less inclined to see them again or for a long time. I keep it to a minimum. So I disapprove of them. I like them less. I don't subscribe to their ideas. I don't like how they express themselves. It's clumsy. Maybe they're not listening enough to me. I'm not really interested to listen enough to them. Generally, there's less recognition. And that is why I become picky about dating partners. This is why I get picky about assessing and evaluating my relationship. It is not as real as I have learned it can be. Of course, in an unreal sense in social media. And this is why, in general, real contacts in real life are now less satisfying. They pale in comparison. So I spend more time on social media. It's more satisfying. Those metasocial processes on social media deplete additionally my social battery, which makes me less inclined, which makes me fatigued with the idea of going out to see real people. When I do push myself and go out to see real people, I find them bland and boring, and I feel isolated. And so this is a reinforcing circle of frustration, of boredom, of perceiving people as fake, as not real. Social media excites me. Real people are bored, boring, uninterested, uninteresting. And this is basically a cluster F. This is, a combination of such disadvantageous qualities about how social media is structured that it leads to us feeling disconnected from real life, leading psychologically to a very unhealthy sense of isolation, a sense of loneliness, when we cannot connect to real people and we find solace in the contact to people online. This is, I think, the problem that we've been facing. This is, I think, a more complete picture to understand why this is such a change. It has been a change in the past years, where the sense of perceived loneliness has increased so much. And as a society, and for legislation, for example, this is a challenge that we seriously have to address, because there is the danger of the civil contract, the implicit base on what our societies are founded on. There is a chance that we lose this more and more. Psychologically, we have to deal with the consequences for mental health, for connection, for purpose. People do not know what they are doing. They have not chosen the price that they pay when they engage a lot in social media. And I think as educators, it is our responsibility to let them know how much they are sacrificing. This is it for today. In the next episode, I want to focus on more philosophical foundations and deep psychological foundations that describe why we are so interested in the social realm at all. Why is it so important to us? The argument that I brought up in the beginning, that it's our need for survival, is not sufficient. There is something deeply ingrained in the mechanisms of the mind that makes it extremely interested and susceptible to social cues. the social situation. And this belongs to our understanding of the big picture, why it has so dramatic consequences when our social perception goes wrong, as I described today. And so I would like to invite you next time to go into the depth of our mind in that sense. If you have questions, let me know in the comments below. I hope you found it interesting, and I see you next time. Goodbye.